JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Thursday, October 23rd, 3:24 in this fine afternoon talk. Quick about the market names. I'm looking at going from there. SP is in the green, up nearly 0.75%. Far cry from yesterday's close, but down 0.5%. At this time yesterday, we probably were down about 0.75%. But it's funny. It's like you can uh, create headlines today and yesterday, and then guess where the market would close, or would it be up or down? And to me, it'd be hard to figure out, right? I mean, we're up today on what? I mean, Tesla was down in the pre-market. We're down this morning. You still have some of the news outlets saying Tesla's down. Red to green today. It seemed, you look at IBM today, which is still in the red, but it's fighting to go green. Is Tesla still in the green? Well, yeah, still 1.6%. So you can make all these headlines, and then markets are rallying. So to me, the big obviously we're through the news vacuum so far this week. Now we have tomorrow's CPI data. That'll be the huge important piece. But taking out yesterday, where the S&P's up. Well, not taking out, including yesterday, the S&P's up 1.6% on the week. So impressive stuff. The funny part, and I wouldn't call it the funny part, but take a look at the fear and greed index. Sorry, I'm a little tongue twister here. It's at fear, not extreme fear, but close enough. And I think some of that's because of the VIX, which the VIX typically when we're having markets right at all-time highs, the VIX is at 15 or so. We're still in the 17s. Maybe that's some of it, but interesting nonetheless. But the good thing with the bad too, the yields are still right there at that right under 4%. So all things could change tomorrow. I put on scenarios on the watch list just this morning. If it comes in line like 3% or so, I think markets will hold their ground. Maybe the SPY can get to that 675 handle. We have 34 minutes left in today's trading session. Maybe today. I don't. Joking aside, if it's cooler than expectation, I think we rally, and I think we're over that 675 handle. Hotter than expectation, you talk like 3.3, 3.5. I think things might get a little nasty. 1.5% to the downside on the S&P. I don't think that'll be the case. The implied move right now, and do I have it up here? Why didn't I post that? So it's a dollar move on the S&P. So like 0.55% implied move on the S&P for tomorrow. Not too much based on previous CPI reads. All right, so that's quick on the overall markets. I was trying to think of something else. I talked about the great circle jerk. I could talk about the greats. It could be a year from now, and I could still be talking about the great circle jerk, right? The thing is about all the things that go on with the market. Like you can be right about something that might take place, but if your timing is off, there's no, what's the point, right? I use the thing never wrong, just early. At some point you have to, if there's some cracks in this AI capex spend infrastructure circle jerk scenario. You just want to. It's important to me. Is like I put it on the watch list again this morning too. It's not even like calling the top is fruitless, right? That's people have been calling tops for ages. It's if you if you call a top and you have a great percentage calling tops, and a lot of these people who say they do have called 500 of the last two tops in the market. Obviously, you can make some money, but to me, the point is not calling the tops, but being aware of scenarios and then being prepared when they do possibly start to play out. So, like I've been doing over the last, not the last couple of years, but what I traditionally do is make sure I have hedges in place on breaks to support on the SPY. And that's what I'll continue to do going forward. All right, so that's the overall market. 675 resistance on the SPY. 668 was the level yesterday. We came down to yesterday was kind of like support, and then we came down to it again today. So I have to think that's a key spot if markets kind of are somewhat normal tomorrow. So that's the overall market. Now, just quick on individual names. First, I'll talk about SanDisk, which is now hitting all-time highs again here, right as I speak. 167.43. Monster move here today. Yesterday, right? What a difference a day makes. It hit 155 yesterday, then sold off with the market, but not as much as you would think, because it's one of those names that's up huge, especially over since the start of September, but pretty much since the start of the year. You would think it would be down substantially yesterday. It wasn't. It was holding its ground. I'm kicking myself because when it was 155, my calls were in the green and then it sold off, and I'm like, I'm losing my chance to sell the calls, but I still thought maybe there'd be some crazy move. Sure enough, here we are this morning. It was running up at the open. It just kept going. 158, 160. And then by 10:45, it's 165. So, I didn't have a ton of calls. They were lotto in nature, right? And typically I don't get lotto calls that are $1.25. But this is one of those examples that doesn't happen as often. But I went and closed some out for well, I had already locked some out on Monday, and then I held them, and I locked some more in for 200%, and then just a little while ago for a couple more 400%. I don't have many left right now, so this is kind of one of those. I wouldn't call it the hero zero for tomorrow, but I could see it trading over 170 tomorrow. I could see it trading under 160. So I'll just continue to hold the last two of those strikes. Just I was looking yesterday, and actually at the start of the week, I'm like, if I close all the strikes out for this week, should I go out to next week? And of course, I was like, oh, the 190s look expensive, and the 190s are up like well, it says 800% today, but they're probably up 300% from yesterday. Maybe in hindsight, but to me, stock was at 146 yesterday, so you're talking a $50 move for next week, and so all things considered, to me, I don't want to just try and chase this now with the premiums that are extremely elevated into next week and as earnings November 6th. So I'll just be happy to have cash made money on it. My calls, what a 510 by 560. So I'll hold those until tomorrow. So that's SanDisk. And then the other trade I made back in nuclear. I call it nuclear. It's Terra Innovatum Global. I don't even know how to pronounce the Innovatum. Sounds like a Latin word. But it's in the nuclear space, the nuclear modular, whatever, however you want to call it. I am not an expert in this field whatsoever, right? So this is kind of new to me, but I do know that energy is a big topic, and there's going to be needs for energy now. There's going to be needs for energy in the future, not going away, and means of energy outside of the fossil fuel, all those fun things, right? So I used to be a big proponent or fan of solar energy, right? Back Solar City, all those things. I'm not, I'm not a tree hugger or whatever you want to call it. To me, I think if there's avenues of creating energy that don't create fossil, not they don't pollute the environment, I'm all for it, right? And the public markets are great for the opportunity for companies that wouldn't have access to capital to make things happen, innovate. But in a nutshell, so I played those lotto calls. Was that last week? I think it was last week or the week before. All the way into the 20s. Made some nice coin. Unfortunately, I held on to the last two. Had to let those expire. And then was looking at the calls into this week. And, I think the implied move was 60% at times. Stock got pummeled this week with the rest of the Momo names. And then you start looking. Even yesterday, I was ready to pull the trigger on, I was saying, I think Monday's Rant. I'm like, 2250s look interesting. Then the 20s, then the 15s. Got all the way down to 7 and change yesterday before bouncing a little bit. And then I was watching today. And I didn't want to dip my toes in until it looked like there was some more follow through. Once it finally started getting to the mid 9s, I'm like, okay, here's the chance to add some spec calls. And spec calls, this could sit here at $9 through option expiration, right? That's kind of like the bear case. The bull case is it resumes this momentum and gets back into the 20s, right? So for me, the implied move now is $4.90 on November strikes, which is what was that 50% move on the strike. It was down from its 60% move prior last week. So the implied move has dropped. So even if it gets up to 11, $12, that implied volatility should go up. So the call should go up just as a function of that. And then obviously, if it gets to the 20s, it's going to be up serious. So I went and got those spec calls. I was actually looking at the 1750s. And I think I tried at 65, could get a full fill. I pulled it off, and then it started going, and the premiums went up. So I went and got those higher strikes. I just, I it's like one of those names that I'll be kicking myself because I could see this catching FOMO again. I still think a lot of folks don't understand the story. So not only that, they present at a conference next week. So I think it's Friday, October 29th. No, next Wednesday. So it's a virtual conference, Bank of America, and they have other conferences going in November. So anyway, all right, so like that one. And then this morning, right after the open. So at the end of the day yesterday, I added those Reddit spec lotto calls just because it's been one of those names that's had some volatile moves and it's stuck, right? And at some point it's going to break out and hold the gains. So I added those 215s yesterday. Sure enough, it breaks out at the open all the way up to 205, locked some calls out for nearly 100%. Then I locked some more for over 100%, and then I held the rest. And then sure enough, melts lower into the afternoon here. It's still up 2% today. Gonna need a big move tomorrow. But knowing me, I'm probably gonna add some more strikes into next week on Reddit. I mean, take a look at this. I don't know how many sessions. I know this is October, right? And October has not been a good month for Reddit. Hopefully the end of October will be good, which will be next week. All right, so that's Reddit. So bank some money on those today. And then I'm finally in deck, right? So I got those deck spec lottos this morning. This is a high risk, high reward trade, right? Deck reports earnings after the close. If they report earnings that are, even in line, the stock might stay flat for the next week and a half, right? So if that's the case, my call is going to be bidless. On the flip side, if they post another beat and raise, which they did last quarter, you have to think the stock heads into the mid to high 120s. The thing is, I got myself time, so I have next week's strikes. Uh, Not only that, like I look at this chart, and this is, I don't know if you're watching the chat room, this is the setup of the chart, and you take a look at its last earnings, all the way, I think it was 102. I have to look exactly where it closed. Maybe it was 105. And then the next day was all the way into 130. Actually, I think in pre-market it was 130. And then it was on the 127s. It just faded. And then by the a month later, a couple weeks later, it was back under 110. Then it found a bid into September, back up to near 120, and then it's been fading ever since. So to me, it's like I look at MDB, and I always use this example. MDB, I can hear my rants back in the summer talking about MDB. I'm like, they had a great quarter. It got sold off. I don't understand it. I think the market has it wrong. And then sure enough, they posted to me what, in my opinion, was the same exact quarter, a strong beat and raise, and the stock rallied $100, right? 30. I think for the week it was up like 35 or 40%. Calls are up thousands of percent. I'm hoping for some deja vu here. I'm not saying that's my rationale behind the calls and being bullish on deck. The issue with deck, right? So when you have these apparel names and especially high price names, or some of these retailers, like, similar to Nike, they look at the inventory levels. They look at competitors. Obviously, a lot more competitors than there were in the past for Deckers. And then we have the tariff issues, right? Some of the reasons why I thought it sold off, or my premise for playing calls back after April was on that tariff situation. I thought it was overblown. Things were going to get worked out, and so they pretty much have, and stock is still stuck here. So we'll see what happens after the close. High risk, high reward. Do I have a extremely strong conviction that the stock's going to rally into 130s next week? If I was 100% certain, obviously I'd be loading the boat. But a small position, high risk, high reward. So that's the deck setup there. Just some other names. Obviously, still hold my dust calls, GLL calls. Still, we might wake up tomorrow, especially with CPI data. It could be volatile. So even if the market rallies or CPI is in line or flat or things like that, I think at some gold could still come under pressure, right? So I'll continue to hold those and the dust calls. I haven't mentioned serve the last 2 days. Frustrating. I've been sitting here right at 1367, 1375 is that key handle. I talked about adding some more on these dips. I'll probably just wait for things to shake out. Just to me, it's like some of these names have overshot. And sometimes it creates opportunity. I already have positions because when it starts to move, it's not like serve moves up 1 or 2%. It moves up 6, 7, 8%. So I'll just continue to hold those strikes there. I'm trying to think of something disappointing here this morning too. Other names I was watching, Impinji, right? PI, I think is the ticker. Gosh, one of those names I used to trade back in the day, high short interest on a play on like warehouses, right? And RF tags that people used to back in the day. You'd have the radio frequency tags for inventory, and now it's digital and the tracking and all this the crazy stuff. And PI was a play on like Amazon, right? The warehouses tracking freight and storage. And then you start looking to the future. And it's like, oh, you have those Amazon stores where you don't need to check, you don't need a cart, you don't have to go to a cashier. Everything's tracked. So it was like right in the wheelhouse. And I always kick myself in the butt because I'm like missing the big move on this name. And then I was watching this morning, said, see it in the chat room. I'm like, oh, it's 215. Here it is at $242. It's like, oh. And then Tesla this morning too. I'm like, I put it on the watch list. I'm like, Tesla's not a name I've traded recently, but it's one of those names that doesn't matter about the revenue and the EPS. I mean, great revenue numbers, but people look at the earnings. Oh, 4 straight quarters of declining earnings. Like, Tesla's not an earnings story right now. It's just my opinion, right? But sure enough, I'm staring at the 440s. I think they were $1.60 or $1.80, and boom, it goes. That was when it was at 424, and it went all the way up to 449. I don't even want to look what the 440s are now. Oh, they're $10. All right, well, it is what it is. There's always opportunities, right? You can't just sit there and cry about the move you missed. You got to look for other opportunities, right? There's no point in that. Live and learn. All right. So have a great day, folks. I'll be back. Rock and roll.